So we got a Patreon listener question. For anyone also who enjoys the podcast, just a reminder, we have a Patreon. It's actually tied more to my Proto Retro YouTube review channel, but the Patreon is also linked to Transformers Slag. So if you want to be a Patreon member, if you're past a certain mark, you get to ask questions, and we're glad to answer them and everything and flesh them out on the podcast. And
Yep,
we
yep.
have one that's actually it's a little bit aimed at you, uh, Wendell.
Huh?
Uh,
What?
the, the
Huh? Huh?
the Gray
I wasn't
Skull.
asleep.
The Gray Skull asks, if you had to pick one and only Transformers series and say it was the best of them all, which would it be and why? I know Proto Man has spoken a lot about his favorite, but what is Jaws' choice? Keep up the great work, guys. So I guess I'll say mine after, which I think everyone knows anyways. But I mean,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
yours? Would you say greatest of all time if you had
Oh
to pick
boy.
one?
I had to pick one and watch it over and over again. Dang. I don't know. I mean, I have three in my head. Um, and I think if I had to like gun to my head, I think I would probably choose Beast Wars, all three seasons.
Yep. And you know what? I'm the same. I remember when YTV used to play Beast Wars Monday to Friday. I think it was like at 10:30. Like they would play it every single night. And and again, you're talking a series that had like from front to back, season 1 to 3. I think it's only got 39 episodes or something.
Hmm.
So when you're talking syndication Monday to Friday, you're watching literally the entire series every 2 months. Yeah. And but at the same time, I mean, I love Beast Wars. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the best. Again, I was raised on G1. Um, I started with G1 with the '86 movie. I got more into G1 because of G2 because they were playing the older episodes through G2.
Yeah, exactly.
But when Beast Wars came on the scene, it just revolutionized storytelling for Transformers, and in a lot of ways, I feel has never really gone back to that level since. Mainly because of just of the mo. Kenner was in charge of Beast Wars at the time before Hasbro took it over solidly.
Hmm.
So I guess maybe they weren't as much as a toy company, and their mo is still to sell toys. Um, just because of the limitations of CG back then, and how expensive it was, they had to stick with a smaller cast and flesh out those characters. I mean,
And I usually find that when you have some properties or anything like that that have a limitation, where it may be movies, TV shows, usually they'll find creative ways to still give you that story, still be creative and stuff like that. Like Jaws had a limitation where the main robot for the shark didn't work.
you're referring to
So
the Steven Spielberg movie
yeah,
Jaws. Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So basically, what he did was, you know what? I won't show the monster yet. I'll show it towards the end, so it just builds up this tension, like this unseen monster that you can't see, and that will freak people out, and that
The old
gamble
saying,
paid
"Less
off.
is more."
Exactly.
And well, that's why. And I mean, it's funny too because the birth of characters that are iconic today, like Black Arachnia and
Hmm.
Tigatron, were solely because of limitations.
Yep.
The original plan, like for even someone like Tigatron, they wanted to do Wolfang, which was a existing Beast Wars toy. They
Right.
wanted to make him be a standalone character, and then they were just like, look, we don't have the budget and or the time to do this, to manufacture from scratch a new transformation, a new model. And so they're like, well, then we're just going to take Cheetor and retool it. And then,
Just double it up.
yep, and they gave birth to, an iconic character that we all know today and love. And then the same thing with Black Arachnia, even more so. Through Black Arachnia, we got our very first uh, U.S. retail mass release female toy, which up to that
Hmm.
point didn't exist. There was no. I mean, yeah, there's retcons if you want to get into that, but I don't
But
want.
there was no RC.
Yeah, there was no RC. But, because nowadays people go back and go, well, this RC racer is a female character now, so it's like, yeah, okay. But the point is, back then, Black Arachnia was the first, and but it's just but Beast Wars just, I mean, everything about it. Not just like, I mean, they when I mean the Grayskull, when he asked Transformers series, obviously we kind of gut react to a TV series, but I mean as a toy line too. Everything
Yeah.
about Beast Wars was just above and beyond. I mean, Generation Two brought about ball joints and universal joints, and the end of Generation 2 brought about storing weapons on the toys, which up to
Yep.
that point storing weapons sometimes wasn't on the toy at all, because at the end of Generation 2 you had laser rods, and a lot of laser rods didn't keep their swords on their bodies. Yeah, you could keep them on their bodies in a weird way, like, oh yeah, the sword
Hmm.
could kind of store here or store there, but it never was a practical way that actually kind of fused with the toy itself.
Yeah, exactly.
um, where Beast Wars was the first time that it went, you know what? Ball joints, and universally across the line, the weapon could be stored properly. Or it
Hmm.
could be a part of the body, whether it be a tail, or whether it be, a gut, or fangs, or a horn, or something. And
Yeah.
it made it a standard. There wasn't a single Beast Wars toy where some kind of weapon was on the side. It wasn't,
Hmm.
unless it was extra
Um.
missiles. That's probably about it.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think the Wolfang, like the two Dog brothers, basically had a really interesting way of keeping the shield, the
The
missiles,
missiles was such a
and the
clever
gun.
way. How
Like just all that stuff. How it just kind of
the way that
like.
he stores the missiles is probably the most clever thing I've seen, where it's just like you remove that back piece for the shield, and then
Hmm.
he has all the missiles stored as like ribs. Like it was. I mean, Beast Wars was just above and beyond. Like it's just. I mean, the fun. I couldn't believe. I look back, looking at old ATT comments and stuff, and how people were just screaming to get back to G1, and
Hmm.
how deluded they were. It's like it's just like,
Well, I
oh,
feel I feel that technically happens for a lot of the time because like if I had to pick a second one, I would have said Transformers animated because you got extra other characters have been brought into other Transformer properties and just the creativity of the toy. But then people were complaining about how Optimus wasn't the Optimus they knew as a kid, or at least that's what I got from people that
oh, there
um,
was two camps. I
heard
agree with you. There was the
like that
camp that
people.
there was camps that really loved animated and
Hmm.
saw its potential, and then there was camps that are just like, not my Optimus,
Yeah,
and they
and
and they
it's like
still and they still weren't a fan of Derek Wyatt's art style. There were still some
they
people
were
that,
they weren't yeah they weren't a fan of the art style. They weren't a fan that Optimus is learning to be confident in himself. That's not my Optimus. He was always confident. And it's like I'd like to see a story where we get to see the complete arc of Hot Rod Rodimus Prime, you know? Well,
oh
no,
yeah,
more so Rodimus Prime, I would
we
say, where
never got
he's
that.
just,
We
you know what
ne-
I mean? That's how I kind of feel with animated, and I feel like I like that Optimus a bit more, where he's not confident, but he's still going out there to do stuff. He's leading the team, and sometimes the team doubts him, and a lot of that can be felt in Beast Wars, where you know Optimus tells Ratchet to go scout something, and Ratchet's like, "Pfft, I can't fly, you do it." And he's like, fine, I will. And he flies out and he gets shot down immediately. And everyone looks at Rat Trap and he's like, oh, at least it wasn't me.
well, he even
It's
had a
like,
line in that same episode, first day on the job. Like it's just it. And again, like a lot of what people back in the day would criticize Rodimus for. And like you mentioned before, Rodimus never really got that proper arc, in the sense like he got it, like I almost felt like it was wrapped up quickly, where it's like, oh, I'm not Optimus Prime, and then the episode Bird and Hardest the Bear happens, where he's like, yeah, maybe I should have the Matrix. And then you have episodes like Dark Awakening, where he then quickly gives the Matrix back to Optimus Prime. So
mhm,
it's just like, and then ultimately in the end, Return of Optimus Prime, where he's still doubting himself. You know what I
yeah,
mean? He's still
I'm not the leader you were.
literally up
I,
until the Return of Optimus Prime, he still doubted himself. He still didn't have, and he never had that proper arc. And then, like, if you then go to the Japanese Splinter continuity of it,
mhm,
then he's just Rodimus Convoy, and he just gets the Matrix back and goes back to business. Just
mhm,
like being not Optimus Prime. And at that point, that kind of character development was written out of him at this point. Then he was just this confident leader, but it never established when that happened. But again, it was the Japanese writing. Japan saw Rodimus in a different light than America did. Be,
mhm.
they actually like always hyped him up as this like really great leader that was way better than Optimus Prime. Where the writing really was different though for season 3 or Transformers 2010 it was called in Japan. So, but when you look at that kind of character type, you look at Beast Wars, Primal was this evolution of a leader.
Yeah.
Fearless, but still first day on the job. Same thing with animated Optimus Prime. The whole
Hmm.
Prime, you know, ranking isn't the leader in that continuity. It's Magnus.
Yeah.
So, him too, being like he's just the leader of this small, ragtag group. But
Hmm.
even them, they kind of all don't really respect him because he's not the head honcho. He's just like first day on the job kind of dude.
Yeah.
So again,
But
going
I don't.
back to Gray Skull's question again, Beast Wars. It goes without saying,
Yeah.
and I think that if you did polls today, they're like the Unicron trilogy is now more than 10 years old. Transformers Prime as a series is just kind of coming around. It's like 7 year old, 8 year old mark. Transformers animated next year will be 10 years old.
Mm.
So every series we've kind of had a good amount of time. Same thing with Car Robots, Robots in the Skies. We've had a good amount of time with a lot of series to fester on them and look back and go, was it good? Was it not good? And Beast Wars still, in my opinion, and I'd argue it comes up as number one with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just another thing I was gonna point to was one of the main reasons I really liked it was because just the storytelling was good, the quips, the comebacks, the writing, the acting. Wow.
Oh God. Well,
The acting is amazing.
the
The
Ocean
fact
Group,
that
the Ocean Group, as they were called, the Vancouver crew of voice actors of David Kay, Gary Chalk, Scott McNeil, Venus. Uh, oh my God, I know I'm forgetting names and I should bite my tongue. Or
Blue
Ian
Manku,
Corlett. Uh, you know,
Blue
uh,
Manku,
sorry, Blue Man Coo. Yeah,
Blue.
Blue Man Coo. Um, God, come on, come with. I was literally his liaison for TFCon last year.
Rhinox.
Richard Newman, yeah, Richard
There you go.
Newman. Just so many. Campbell Lane, the voice of Rampage, who passed away, another amazing twisted voice.
Yeah.
Like his first appearance was incredible. Even Sue Blue, who was Transmutate,
Mm.
like she was the voice. And by the way, the voice director of Beast Wars, Sue Blue, credit to her. I mean, I would hear so many stories how like she would say like part of the secret to why Beast Wars was so good was because it was like a high school crew of kids, and she had to be the teacher that was like, okay, settle down, Scott, put down the pen, like. And Scott McNeil was like the OC, the ADD kid who was bouncing around the room, you
The
know.
ADD kid that had like insane chops. Like you wouldn't think that whole soliloquy that Dinobot gives about destroying the disc and just trying to figure out what to do with it, and then he's just like, I'm gonna hide it, and I'm gonna see this through. And the fact
Scott
that
McNeil is a fascinating human being in the sense that when you meet him, you think he's this like crazy drinking kind of guy. Where's the booze? Where's the cigarettes?
this like out there free spirit kind of
Oh
dude
yeah, but
that probably like you would think he doesn't take things seriously.
yeah, but then like you go to karaoke and you hear him sing and you go, holy moly! Like he's got a singing voice too, and he could do all these voices and do it like seriously, like Shakespearean serious. Very like
But
this.
wasn't it you that said that that whole monologue of Dinobots was it wasn't scripted, it was just off the dome or something?
A lot of
It was ad libbed,
a lot
no?
of Beast Wars, what was really good with it was there was scripts, but because it's that pre-dub process, which is a lost art because it's starting to disappear now in the future. Now it's like a lot of these guys they voice record individually in studios playing off of each other, which is terrible.
Hmm.
Like even though we talked recently about the behind the scenes with the Titans Returns series that's coming up,
Hmm.
everyone's in the studio separately.
Yeah.
They bring Judd Nelson in. He reads his lines, looking at a screen. Maybe could hear whoever recorded his lines before to hear it play off of. Like, oh, did Michael Dorn do his lines? Okay, I'll play off of those. So I mean, it's a lost art where,
Hmm.
especially with anime, it's lost completely too. Like if there's a dub process, where you look at that old, it's called the pre-dub. You have Sue Blue, and then everyone's just sitting in a circle, playing off of
Yeah.
each other. And while the script is there, the script is more of a guide than it is
Yeah, exactly.
anything else. Where if they could do something that's if they could do something that's like you said, off the cuff, but better, they'll use it. And
Because
the funny thing is, years later, there's people now that are finding old recording sessions from G1, because G1 was done in that same style too,
right,
and they're
right.
finding old recording sessions from G1 of stuff that wasn't on the script, that just wasn't used at all, but was recorded.
Hmm.
And it's fascinating stuff, and it's again, it's a lost cause, and Scott is the king of that. When we do our script readings at TFCon, you know, they read the script maybe once or twice. You know what I mean? They don't get a lot of time with it. You know what I mean? It's literally, they go to the script reading, they do the audition judging, so they're busy focusing on that, and then they're thrown the script, and they have maybe like 5-10 minutes to kind of go over it before they could really lay into it. And you listen to guys like Scott McNeil, Gary Chalk, David Kay, they think on their toes. Those dudes are
Hmm.
incredible. They really, like, they know how to like work it without any preparation. It's like live almost. What is
Yeah,
live, but I mean, like,
exactly.
it's like they have like almost that like theater kind of experience. You
Well,
know
yeah,
what I mean?
that's where your oh, what was it called again? Improv
Yeah,
chops
improv. There
come
you
on, where
go,
you
improv.
kind of throw caution to the wind and you go at it, you know?
Well, that was something.
Like,
That was something too. I remember. I forget who it was. I think it was Phil, one of our staff members. He says a lot of what he's like, because he's a big voice actor guy, Decepticon Army Phil. He was a former Transformers Slag alumni, if you will. Um, Phil used to always say, like, a lot of voice actors, they're very talented stand-up comedians,
hmm,
and stand-up comedians are the same thing. It's a lot of, you're on stage, improv, thinking on your feet. You have your own script in your head, but a lot of things kind of go off the script in those moments, reacting to audience and whatnot. But it's always
yeah.
successful usually. So anyways, we're kind of like getting off topic, but it's just like I mean, that led to a lot of the secret to like all the different things Beast Wars like excelled in, from a toy line, from a storyline aspect, from a CG. It looked gorgeous at its time. It still does, in my
Yeah.
opinion. It still looks great.
I still dig it. I know a few friends of mine feel that it's very old and archaic looking, and maybe the first few
I
seasons,
think
maybe
I think
season one.
I
But
could
I mean, I
criticize the
could.
first season, but I think season 2 and 3 really finds its place. I think when it stops having to be organic animals and being
Hmm.
more metallic animals, where there is no
Yeah,
rule to how something's supposed to look. Now it doesn't have to look like a super lifelike cheetah. Now it
yeah.
can look like a robot cheetah.
That talks.
Yeah, and then there's no rules. You can't
That
say, "Oh,
talks with
it
big
doesn't look
green
like a robot
eyes.
cheetah." How's it supposed to look, a robot cheetah? Like,
Yeah.
so
But
it.
I still, I don't know, I would still watch that first season over Toy Story 1, I find
Oh,
personally.
I think I remember
And I know people love Toy Story 1.
James Cameron's Avatar came out, and someone, I remember, was like, I was talking with them, and because I wasn't a big fan of it. I mean, it was an okay movie, but I wasn't like, oh my god. And someone
It's a
said to me,
very safe movie.
yeah, and someone said to me, they were like, "Oh, but it was so beautiful. There was this one scene where, like, he's flying on their beast there, and he's going to this floating island." And I was like, "When do you ever see a floating island in CG?" And I almost wanted to go, I don't want to swear, but it's like, it was a
Yeah,
girl I
don't
was talking to.
swear.
I was like, be please, like in Beast Wars, there was 2 episodes that had floating islands. Like, it had Power Surge and what's it called? The Trigger Part 1 and 2. Like, there was floating islands all over Beast Wars. There was floating islands everywhere, and that was 19. That was like 20 years ago.
And then what else? Oh yeah, like just a lot of different genre changes. They did horror, they did comedy, they did
Oh yeah,
western, westerns when Quick Strike comes in. Like just
Coming of the Fusers.
all over the place in a good way too.
Coming of the Fusers Part One. The last like 5 minutes was the western kind of cue. The horror aspect was which was which was Protoform X, with
Mm-hmm.
Rampage. His first appearance, very horror in cinematography and music.
Mm-hmm.
When you go, even when you go to what do you call it, the Transmetal 2 episodes, which was I think it was called Primal Scream Part 1 and 2. Again, very
Mm-hmm.
horror because it's like, oh, who's this monster character, and we find out it's Cheetor later.
Yeah.
Um, and then again, like you mentioned, comedy, The Low Road, probably like the funniest
Oh yeah,
Transformer
yeah.
episode of all time. I don't think there's a Transformer episode that have ever went that direction. And again, like you have all of these different ways to tell a story using this same core cast of characters. And that's the thing with Beast Wars also. Funny. What a like, there was so much humor and written innuendos, like there's Rat Trap was always like just the cornerstone of that. It's like, I'm gonna take you to this place where the lady bots don't have their front plates on, and you're just like, whoa, jeez, like, and then like, oh, pussycat, I hate it when you jiggle my joystick. It's just like, geez,
Yeah,
like Rat Trap, my god,
nope. Keep
like
it coming.
but that's what I'm trying to say, like this show was just, and again, it was written at a time when really all that existed was Marvel UK, Marvel the G1 cartoon, Japan stuff, and that was it. There wasn't anything else of Transformers, and they still made an effort to like throw in little nods here and there to G1 to let them know, hey, we're in this one giant continuity together.
Yeah.
And it
Like
was
the Transformers name is not here for no reason.
Oh yeah, it was,
Yeah.
even though the funny thing is at that time it was taking second fiddle. It was
Yeah.
Beast Wars Transformers written under it. But, as time progressed, now it's Transformers Beast Wars to a lot of people, but back then it was just Beast Wars. It was, or Beasties if you were Canadian. I think we talked enough about this. Thank you, the Gray Skull, on the question. I mean, any excuse to talk about the best Transformer series of all time can't go, it goes without saying.